So morning all, Richard Smaller from Evolve Baits, and you join me on another lovely spring morning. And again, I'm going to do something slightly different again today. So today it's all about how I go about tackling new venues, venues I've never seen, venues I've never fished before, and how I gather that information and hopefully put a few fish in the net. So those of you who watched a few of my features and have been tracking my Facebook threads will know that during lockdown, I've primarily just been fishing woodland waters down in Ancaster, very local to myself. Now there's 4 lakes at Woodland Waters. There's what I call the Match Lake, Bream Lake, which is about 12 to 15 foot deep, and that's where you've seen me do a lot of my features. And there's the Specimen Lake, which again is about 15 foot deep, and that's just starting to wake up at the moment. But then there's 2 other little lakes as well. And I've come to one of these lakes. I've never fished it before. Yes, I've seen it, but this is the first time I've ever fished it. I've always just driven past it. Now, unlike the big lake, which are about 12, 15, as I said, even 17 foot places, this lake apparently is about 2.5 foot deep, and apparently it's full of roach, rudd, and there's even some odd carp in here as well. So how do I go about tackling venues? Well, the good thing about social media now and the advent of the internet is there's a plethora of information out there. So it's all about gathering as much information as you can. And I'll give you an example. When I first fished a Specimen Lake back in, I think it was September, October last year, I remember James Robbins from Cadence, he'd done a feature on there previously. So first thing I did was watch that feature, sort of got a feel for the venue, got a feel for an angler I really respect, to see what he thought about the venue. What I then did was I gave James a call. And James himself hadn't fished it that much, but he put me on to then one of the local experts, where he himself had got his information from a guy called Dave Costa. So I then gave Dave Costa a call, had a good chat with him, and he really put me right. And that's the key, just try and sort of gather that information. There's loads and loads of videos out there now. The other thing, there's no substitute for going to have a look at the venue. It's as simple as that. As I said, I'm very lucky. I've driven past this loads. I've never really sort of watched people fish here, but I can see them fishing here. If you're going to tackle a new venue, if you can, try and get down there. Now, as you know, I travel the whole country for things like river fests. Quite often it's not possible to drive 150 miles, even if there's no restrictions, just to go and have a look at the go and have a look at the venue. And that's where you're relying on the Friends network, again, social media, or through Facebook or other social media platforms, and try and get yourself out there, try and get yourself involved with other anglers. So this venue itself, and as I said, I think it's about 2.5 foot deep. My primary target today is going to be roach, rudd, and maybe some skimmers. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll just start setting up, and then I'll talk to you about my setup, and hopefully we'll film me catching some fish. With the peg itself, then I've elected to fish peg 3 on the little lake. I'm just going to kick you across the water. So as you can see, it's a relatively small lake. There's some sort of artificial islands, what looks like some trees in the water, and just my luck really, but there's a fire going around about 50 meters to my right, and that's blowing lots of smoke. So if nothing else, I'm going to be covered in ash and smoke all day. But lovely. As you can see, I'm the only person on the lake at the moment, so I've got the whole lake to myself, which is absolutely fantastic. Cutting you across the water, there's a sort of lovely green tinge in the water. It's not gin clear, you can see just here as I come in, there is a little bit of colour in it. Sun's bright, and that sun is going to be in my eyes pretty much all day, and there's going to be a ripple, and that's going to affect my float choice. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So let's get set up. So the next part of the process, I think, go hand in hand really. It's about bait selection, and that then will determine where you're going to fish and how you're going to fish. So the lake I'm on today, you're not allowed to use ground bait or additives at all. So I'm just going to be using raw maggot effectively, or caster. Because it's shallow, if you think about it, I can't bring the fish in via ground bait, so I'm going to use caster. Now I think caster is just going to ping, hit the water, create a noise, and I think it's that noise that are going to be bringing the fish in. So I've brought 2 pints of caster, about a pint of maggot as well, so I'm predominantly going to fish a caster session today. So caster, you can sort of do it in many ways really. You can dump pot it or spray it. I'm going to spray it today, probably kickstart it off with a little bit of dump pot, but as I said, it's that noise, constant caster falling through the water, a bit like pellet fishing if you will, that's going to create the noise. So I want to create a bit of space, so I'm going to fish in my mind around about 10 meters out. Obviously I'm aiming to put a bag of silverfish together, so I don't want to go too far out. because that'll just slow things down. So I'm going to start about 10 meters. If I can bring them in, great. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about the rigs in a second, but I think I'll start on the bottom, and as the caster keeps on going through the water, I think they'll gradually come up. So I've got it in my mind, roughly how far out I want to fish. But of course, the next stage is plumbing the water. As I said, new venue, it's really, really vital. Spend the time plumbing up. So what I'm going to do now is just spend a few minutes plumbing up. A bit like you do on the feeder, I'm just going to imagine sort of a bit of a cross. I'm going to start around about 3-4 meters out, build a mental image, just add bits of the section on. And even though I've elected to fish at 10 meters, I'm still going to add 12, 13, 14, 15 meters on, just to see how that depth changes, just to see if I'm missing something. And then I'm going to go left and right, sort of a meter left and right, and just have a look all the way and just try and map that bottom, just to see if I can find a dip maybe. So places, for example, like Holland, where the bream feeding, you know, what they always say is you find your snooker table and then you find a hole in the middle of it and you fish in that hole. That's obviously where the fish are used to pecking. I've got a gut feeling this lake, you know, it's commercially dug. I've got a feeling it's probably going to be flat all the way across. But without further ado, let's just have a look. So I've taken a stab at around about 2.5 foot. So just starting off literally end of the keep net. So it's about 2 foot, about 2 meters out, like 2 foot, pretty flat as I thought. Adding another section on. Inching it out, exactly the same depth. Slightly deeper there, not too much. So I think that sun's going to be really interesting today. Exactly the same depth. Same depth all the way out. Just gonna have a look left and right now. Yeah, it's just the same depth absolutely everywhere, which is good. Obviously, slightly shallower there to the left actually. Oh, that's interesting. So at around about 6 meters, I've found it shallows up by about 3 or 4 inches as I go about a meter to the left. I'm just going to see if there's a little bit of a bar, a little bit of a ridge, or whether there's just a sort of a hump in the water. I think it's just a little bit of a hump actually I found in one place, because actually you go out back past it. So again though, just by literally, you know, I've only been doing it for 2 minutes, so I found about 2 meters to the left, about 6-7 meters out, there's a little bit of a raised hump. Now for fishing here, I don't think they'll make that much difference, but when you're bream fishing, for example, and you're looking for bars, really, really important. So maybe 2.5 foot. So just about set up then, I'm just going to do one more thing before I start fishing. And again, this is all back to that, how I go about tackling new venues. So I've had a look at my rig and I guesstimated it was, you know, 2.5, maybe 3 foot deep. So I've got a little tape measure, actually came in the Christmas cracker, believe it or not. And all I'm going to do now is just sort of measure it out. Because quite often, you know, it's really deceptive. You sort of think, so that's 3, that's 3 3/4 foot, so 3.5, 3 3/4 foot. So I was a good 1/2 foot, if not even a foot out on my estimation there. And that's really important. So what I'm going to do now is you can use your phone. I've actually got a little fishing book at home, And all I'll do when I go home now, I'll put today's date, I'll put the venue, I'll put what peg I fished, I'll put how far out I fished, and I'll just log down the depth. And in that way, I can build up that sort of database, if you will, just for my personal fishing. But likewise, if anyone calls me and say, you know, Richie, I saw you fishing a small lake on Woodland Waters, how deep is it? You know, in a year's time, I won't be able to remember, but I can go quickly into the diary, have a quick look, and build up that sort of database. So, as I said, I've set up 2 rigs, so I think without further ado, let's cut you across, have a look at the rigs, and I'll talk about why I've chosen the floats I have, why I've chosen the distance of the lash and the elastics, and how I go about the shot and pattern for tackling this venue I've not fished before. So starting from the top then, I fished my trusted Acolyte Pro pole, and I'm fishing number 5 Preston Hybrid through the top kit. I think this is a fantastic silverfish elastic, certainly good for roach, rudd and small skimmers, and you can also get some carp out on it just through some Dacron connectors, which I make myself. And then the lash, the length of the lash is important then. So I'm electing for a good 75 centimeters on one of them and nearly a meter on the other. So I said I'm going to be fishing up in the water. The water's relatively shallow and I don't really want that pole spooking it. So I am going to be sort of windmilling, flicking it over just like you would on the pellet. And of course, if I start missing bites, I can shorten that. So on to the float selection then. As I said, I'm going to be fishing down at Woodlands. It's in a little bit of a bowl. It's got a ripple on it and I'm going to have the sun in my face all day. It's going to be a low sun and that really makes seeing the float very, very difficult. It's a horrendous light all the time down at Woodlands. You get a blend of white water and brown water off the reflection of the trees. So I've gone for the Crystal Caster floats from Drennan. They're lovely sensitive float, but they've got a relatively thick tip, so you can see it at high vis tip. Absolutely perfect for fishing caster, shallow or caster at all, if I'm being really honest. A clear body, so again shouldn't spook the fish, and a lovely nickel titanium short stem, perfect for fishing up in the water. So I've gone for 2 different rigs. The one on the left is a 0.2 gram and the one on the right is a 0.4 gram. So coming down, as I said, we worked out it's about 3.5 foot of water. So just gone for 2 simple rigs. I'm just going to fish one line today because I'm only fishing for about 3 hours. I'm going to start on the bottom on both rigs. I'm going to start on the rig on the left, and basically I've got number 11 shots all strung out. I'm on a 0.10 main line down to a 0.09 hook length, and I'm electing to fish a Kamasan B512 in a size 20 on the left. Now the one on the right, 0.4 gram, I've just got a bulk and some droppers and a size 18 there. Again, 2 starting patterns, and I can obviously play around with those, come up in the water if I need to, and if I need to I will set up another rig and have an out and out up in the water. So I think without further ado, let's start fishing. So start of the session then, it's 9:10. Personally, I use a stopwatch as well for my float fishing. I've got some fish counters. Just going to start the stopwatch just to see how long it takes to get the first bite. I've got the Feedland clicker system, so I've got 2 clickers on there. What I like to do, again, particularly on new venues, is just sort of monitor the miss bite to bite ratio so I can sort of get it in my mind whether I'm doing the right thing or not. So let's get started. So as I said, I've elected to fish 10 odd meters out. I am going to put a big handful of caster in. As I said, can't use ground bait on here. You normally can't use keep nets, but the owner has luckily allowed me to do it. I've had longer than 3 hours, and if this was certainly in match conditions, I'd probably set up a waggler as well to fish a lot further out. But as I said, all I'm going to do is start on the strung out rig. I'm start on the caster. Breeze picking up. So the light is absolutely horrendous out there. Really nice coming to these venues that I've never fished before. Just going to ping that caster in all day, so that catapult's pretty much going to live in my hand all day. Again, I have no idea how long it takes to get the fish going here. There we go, cracking start. Well, that was a minute and a bit. Yeah, so exactly as I said, rudd to start off with. Was it a roach? That's a roach. So I can start. Oh, the fish are cold, mind. Straight under the clicker. That's a very promising start indeed. That was actually on the bottom rather than on the drop. Maybe flicking like 10 casters at a time. Again, the matchman in me just wants to be feeding 2 lines. Said certainly if I had this on a match. There we go. Got the fish straight away. Carry on catching like this. I think it'll be a lovely day. That's what I get for trying to swing it. Really positive bite. So, as I said, although I've got that carbon caster, not carbon caster, sorry, crystal caster, is quite a thick bristle. I can see it in that chop out there in that terrible light, but it's dotted right down and it's just sinking away, and the fish are clearly on. So that bite as well was on the bottom. Just missed the bite then. So on the clickers, there's definitely some fish to be had out there, that's for sure. So going to keep that caster going in. Missed a bite, so the caster's probably smashed. Just keep it out there just to have a look. Bring it in. Sure, it's smashed. Nope. Always worth checking though. I'm just flicking it out across the water, letting it go through the water on the drop. But as I said, certainly the 3 bites I've had have all been on the bottom at the moment. They actually even on these floats, very hard to see in that. If you had a very, very fine stem, fine tip float rather, it would be very difficult to see. So, first impressions on this lake is absolutely solid. This elastic is really nice. I said a chance of some of these better fish, and you know, there is a chance of getting the carp out on them as well. Setup, you can see I've got a very little net set up primarily for silverfish fishing. Yeah, and a absolutely lovely roach there of about 4 to 5 ounces. Great. So all on single caster at the moment. Do without that fire, if I'm being really honest. So obviously they weren't afraid at all of the dump pot in the caster. carry on catching that well. I think, you know, as I said, I'll try and bring them in. What I might start doing, you know, because from about 3 meters out it's all the same depth, is maybe start feeding my hand quite close in as well. Obviously you don't want to be splitting the fish. Missed the bite there. You're going to miss a few bites, I think, by on the drop. That's why I've got that 0.4 gram. Yeah, just starting to miss bites now on the drop. So there's obviously fish come in as I thought they would. It might be that I either need to come shallow and target them shallow. Yeah, all on the drop there. Missed another bite. Had a feeling this would happen with the caster. Basically, might need to come shallow and fish cast shallow, or just go on that slightly heavier rig, get it right down and catch off the bottom. Need to see how it develops. You see that sort of bite to catch ratio now. You know, hooked 3, missed 3 bites. So by tracking that, as I said, keeping that caster going in, but they're coming straight on it now. On the drop, catching sort of on the drop, just as it hits the bottom. Really, that's when I'm getting the bites. It's just gone after that initial flurry a little bit quiet there, so hope that's not a carp that's moved in. Certainly say you can go through a lot of bait doing this. So I'll just start feeding that inside swim. You know, you might be able to catch them on a top 2+2 here, or top get even. So I just elected, you know, as I'm not fished it before, to fish in open water, but again, I don't necessarily know if it's right. We'll see. Catching some nice roach though. Certainly my initial impression is I think you could catch these fish a lot closer. And a lot quicker, so I'll just start trying to bring them in now, really, you know, just dropping a section off, half a section at a time, and just to see. They're obviously confident enough to feed, so again, just on this one I'll just drop half a section off. I do this a lot at Cashel Ashby in Northampton, sort of gradually drop sections off. It's all about just working out the things that will just make it quicker and quicker and quicker every time. So they're obviously happy to come closer in. I think, you know, just within a few minutes I've managed to get the fish almost a metre closer, and as I said, I've got a feeling you could probably catch them really, really short here. So yeah, we'll see. So you're back with me. I've been fishing for 33 minutes now, and I've had 29 fish and missed 7. So I've made 3 massive changes actually. So I've managed to get the fish in to about 6-7 meters now, which is really good because I can now feed by hand, as you can see. I'm also exactly as expected. The fish have come up in the water with that caster going in. So I'm now fishing about a foot deep on the shallow rig. But what I've noticed is I'm catching some fish about sort of 2 ounces, 3 ounces up in the water. And every now and then I'm just dropping onto the 0.4 gram rig, going on the bottom, and I'm getting some skimmers. So I've had 2 or 3 skimmers, about half a pound each, on the bottom over the same line. So obviously there's a lot of fish there, as expected, catching rudd up in the water. But I said, dropping through onto the bottom, and getting some skimmers. So just every now and then, just changing the rig. The lash is almost a bit too long now, so it's been a bit lazy really. Need to just, you can see I'm catching really well up in the water, exactly as I thought. I've tried getting them in a bit closer. They don't seem to want to come in any closer yet, but I'm confident they will. You know, their whole plan now is try and get these on a top 2, almost fishing to hand really. Will be absolutely fantastic if I can do that. So as I said, just grabbing the odd fish off the top, and then I'll drop onto the other rig. So many fish up in the water there now. So, you know, absolutely catching so fast. You see, they're all lovely little sort of 2 ounce roach really. 2 ounce roach, 2 ounce rudd. Get the odd one. I think the biggest one I've had is about 8 ounce in amongst them. We'll pull the elastic out, which is really nice. But it's lovely now. I've just got into the rhythm. Pole goes out, speed goes down, float almost goes under. Repeat really. There's some better fishing amongst them up in the water. You can certainly see how these would be weight builders. Oh, just so I'm missing a few bites there, so just going to drop onto that heavier rig again. Important to keep that feed going in. I think if I can make the decision to fish up in the water, I'll probably shallow off on that lash, and I'll probably go onto a slightly softer elastic actually, so you can just strike through the float as such onto the fish. Again, notice that when we fish Cash Lashby, you end up on a sort of 2 elastic really. So it's really striking hard through the float. On the bottom here now, see if I pick up any. I'm not convinced much of that food is getting to the bottom at all. I think there's quite a lot of fish there. So this is what happened before, having to wait for the bites really. No 2 ways about it. You're definitely waiting for the bites, but they are got some better fish off that bottom. But you can see just there, you know how much longer it's taking to get the bites really. This is the first time I've not had a bite off the bottom. He says as it. Yeah, as I said, you know, there. Wait for the bite, but looks like slightly better fish, not massive fish. Again, though, I think if the fish are all coming up off the bottom now, it's decision time really of whether to keep them coming and keep that food going in, or just dump pot it and try and get them to feed on the bottom. Have an experiment. Again, that's the good thing about coming to these new venues, I think. What I'll do is probably have the next hour up in the water, and then maybe the last hour. So they're only coming to fish for 3 hours. Maybe the last hour, just dump pot and cast in a lot of caskets, see, get those skimmers to get their heads down. They definitely having to wait for the bites on the bottom. That's for sure. You know, it would have gone twice over, I think, by now, up in the water. Just notice, just getting the bites now on the bottom, but as you can see, missing quite a few. Driving them back down almost by not loose feeding, which Makes sense. As I said, I almost got to make that decision of, do I dump pot it and try and fish out on the bottom, or do I keep loose feeding by hand and accept I'm fishing up in the water? Not really working doing both, if I'm being honest, at the moment. So I feel I've got the fish back on the bottom now, so I'm just slipping the double caster on just to see. So I've cut down the loose feed and the double caster on to see if those bigger fish on the bottom are prepared to take the bigger bait. Bite straight away on that double caster. Not really any bigger though. Yeah, in fact, sod's law, that one is definitely smaller. So although I'm having to wait for the bites on the bottom, I'm just going to spend a little bit of time persevering, just out of curiosity really, to see if I can get any better fish off the bottom. So having spent a little while on the bottom, back with me, and decided just to come back up, again fishing about a foot from the surface, and it's fair to say definitely getting that's where the fish are. There's no two ways about it. Missed a bite there. I think that's just come from feeding that caster by hand so much. Although it's about 11 degrees and it's a shallow lake, it feels warm today, to be fair. You just see it's just instant up in the water. Definitely the way, I think, today to put a weight of fish together by just sticking it out. You can see the odd fish like this up in the water. Definitely the way to go. So just going to get my head down now, next hour, and see if I can get a really nice rhythm going up in the water. So you're back with me, and the good news is I've managed to get the fish onto the top kit now, and I'm fishing about half a foot to a foot deep and catching some clonking fish now, which is really good. So catching quite a few fish like this now, which it's good 8 ounce, 10 ounce fish. Stunning fishing. I said maybe a foot tops deep, which is what I wanted to do really, was get on that top kit, and then what that's allowing me to do is dump pot back out around about 10 meters, which is really nice. Standing up in the water fishing, I am missing a few bites, but in amongst it, when you're getting fish like that, absolutely stunning. Getting some cracking fish. Amazing, just catching under your feet, right on the surface of the water. That's what I love about these new venues. You've not fished before, you just don't really know what to expect, and it's nice just being able to ring the changes, make a few changes, and see what the best method of catching the bigger fish is. So end of the first hour then, I've had 59 fish and missed 19 bites. Probably missed a few more bites than that, if I'm being really honest, what we're fishing up in the water. So as you saw me earlier on, still fishing really shallow, catching some reasonably nice fish up in the water. Most of them are this size, and odd bigger one, which is really nice. And as I said, I'm just dump potting further out as well, so I haven't actually fished over the dump pot for a long while, but probably give it a go in about 20 minutes just to have a look. They're primarily catching about 5 meters out. I am able to bring them in, catch the odd one on the top kit to hand, and then they just seem to back off again. But as I said earlier on, definitely getting some better fish closer in. Get these odd better roach in amongst them. Fish are in incredible condition. It's stunning, stunning fish. Like the fish catching island, really. So you're back with me after 2 hours, and that's 112 fish. So I've had a combination, as you saw earlier on, of catching on the top kit up in the water, and what I'm doing now is I've dump potted, caster in, and I'm just picking up some better fish over the dump potted caster out there. So as you'll basically see, it's putting it fishing long now, about 10.5 meters, and then just flicking caster in still at my feet, and there you go, straight away into the fish right there. Better fish definitely at the feet, but it's good to see you can catch. It's obviously solid, this lake. Good to see you can catch up in the water next to your feet and further out. Not had any carp, not had any signs of carp at all. So I caught some skimmers earlier on, but not had any skimmers in a long while. Absolutely solid it is. So I'll probably give it another half an hour. The battery's running a little bit low on the camera as well, so no idea what weight I've got. I've had quite a few of those roach. That'll go 8-12 ounces, so a lovely day nonetheless. Probably gone through about a pint of caster now. Regularly feeding, as you can just see at my feet. Not feeding anything long, just dump potting in and fishing over the top of it. I think what I'll do with the battery running low is just give it another half an hour, and then pull the fish out and see what we've got in about 2.5 hours of fishing. So a lovely session on a new venue. So I'm always excited to fish new venues. Fairly easy fishing, if I'm being honest. The reality is it looks like an out and out up in the water venue. So I'm just experimenting really long with a dump pot. It's not as prolific out there, that's for sure, compared to the up in the water. Doesn't look like they want a double maggot out there, so back onto the caster. Obviously caster they want, you put the caster back on and you just get a fish straight away. Which makes sense really, that's what I've been feeding, so. So back with me, coming up to 2.5 hours in now. I'm still catching, but as the sun's got higher, the fish have just come up more and more in the water, so even when I'm fishing over the dump pot of caster, missing a lot of bites now. On the close line, right under me, if you flick, you can actually see some fish swirling. so it's getting very, very hard to hit the bites. To be honest with you, I've got a feeling if you had a whip or a 0.1 gram or even less pencil float, you probably hit some of the bites, but just missing way too many bites now. I said the idea was to come and fish a venue I've not fished before, so really enjoyed it today. I've ended up just shy of 150 fish. I've had a crucian carp, I've had a big perch, still catching lots of these. Oh, just lost that one. Lots of these hand-sized roach. So it's been a lovely day's fishing. Really enjoyed it. And as I said, just to recap then, the whole point, as I said, fish a new venue, trying to find out what you can on social media, visit the place if you can, speak to people, find out as much as you can about the venue, decide how you're going to tackle it. As I said, the types of baits, venue specific limits, such as no ground bait, that may affect how you fish it. And then if you can, just log what you find out about the venue down, write it down so you remember it for another time, particularly if it's venues you don't go to very often. Like I said, if you fish, I fish sort of 3-4 days a week, and it'll all just blend into one after a while. So try and jot it down. With phones these days, you can just put it straight into the notes on the phone on the date you fished it, and you've got a little bit of a diary. So I think without further ado, let's get ourselves packed up. Let's get the fish out, have a look at them. As I said, I don't know, 150 of those fish. I'm not sure where it'll go. Way over £10, but cracking days fishing. Let's get the fish out of the water and see what we got. I think it's probably like £20 in there altogether.